Good morning, and this is the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session. It is Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. It is 9:04 a.m. This is set to go until 12 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. This is in building 1, room 280. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. My name is Carolina Mejia. I'm chair of the board. In the boardroom, we have Vice Chair Ty Menser, as well as Commissioner Gary Edwards, County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and other staff members. You're joined by other staff members via Zoom as well. We'll go ahead and start our agenda with our standing item, which is the COVID-19 update. And we have
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Interim Director for Public Health and Social Services. For today's report, April 12th, we had a glitch in the state system. So all the numbers I'm going to give to you are April 7th, unless otherwise noted, because there was a technical issue with the state's database. So the Thurston County total cases are 46,826. And then unfortunately, the Thurston County deaths are 413 as reported by the state. Our 14-day 100,000 case rate is 71.8, which is really good, and it's been trending in a positive direction. Our hospitalizations, current COVID patients in the hospitals are 10. Number on ventilators is 1. Our ICU bed available capacity is 6 adult, 0 pediatric, and acute bed available capacity is 13 adult and 0 pediatric. Our congregate care outbreaks since 2020 have been 189 congregate care outbreaks since March of 2020. And currently there's 8 congregate care outbreaks that are under investigation. So for vaccine doses given in Thurston County, total doses are 513,538. The percent of people initiating vaccination in Thurston County is 72%. The percent of people fully vaccinated is 65.3%. And the percent of people initiating vaccination age 16 and older is 81.8%. And the percent of people fully vaccinated that are 16 and older is 74.1%. The percent of population initiating vaccine age 5 and older is 76.2%. And then the percent of population fully vaccinated age 5 and older is 69%. And then the percent of eligible people receiving booster doses age 12 and older is 58.6%. So our vaccination clinic at Capitol Mall is now running at 3 days a week. That's changed due to the demand that is going into the clinic. So it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 11 to 8 up at the Capitol Mall. Additional clinics, we are only doing the Capitol Mall vaccination clinics. Testing, we continue to test today at Rochester in the roof parking lot. And then tomorrow again at the Lacey, 3811 Pacific Avenue. And then Thursday, we'll be at the Union Gospel Mission, and Friday at the Evergreen State College. All testing locations will run from 10 to 1. And then if a test site utilizes all of their available test kits, they may close early. But right now they're scheduled for 10 to 1. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Abdulmalik for additional information.
Good morning, Commissioners. We're continuing to follow our case rate, which is our confirmed cases, which continues to stay low. We are watching carefully as spring break was last week, just to continue to monitor the transmission patterns here in Thurston County. I did want to update you that we have been talking about the BA.1 Omicron variant and the BA.2 Omicron subvariant, which is more infectious than BA.1. And as of the most recent sequencing data that we have, and just sequencing does take time, so there is a time delay. But the BA.2 variant, it makes up a little bit more than 75% of Washington state cases. So we're watching those transmission dynamics carefully. here in our county. We also are able, I just wanted to circle back that we are able to provide second booster doses at our Capitol Mall clinic for those who qualify. And I do want to encourage folks who do qualify for second boosters to talk to their healthcare provider or come to our Capitol Mall clinic to be vaccinated. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Dr. A. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, Doctor, what seems to be the difference between these new emerging variants and our regular flu seasons that we would normally see? Are the symptoms that much worse? Hospitalizations, they're down, it seems like. So at what point do we just kind of accept it's a normal flu?
So while COVID remains different from influenza, both in terms of the number of folks that are affected, as well as disease severity. So while what's circulating is much less severe in terms of disease severity than we've seen in previous variants, there is an increased risk over many of the viral respiratory illnesses that we see seasonally at this point in time. I would just so I know that as we move forward, there's been there's a shift in focus in terms of prioritizing in terms of public health resources, prioritizing our public health resources towards settings where risk of transmission is increased, meaning that more people, like the likelihood of an outbreak is increased, or when there's demonstrated evidence of transmission. And the other way that we're addressing some of this is also focusing on people who are at increased risk of severe disease if they were to become ill. So folks that have moderate to severe immunocompromise, folks who may also have advanced age. So as we move forward, there's a lot of prioritization and looking at transmission patterns and disease severity patterns as well. But there's still quite a bit of transmission in our community, and we are still seeing new mutations. So it's a bit of so right now we're transitioning from we are, I know Kurt and I use the term quite a bit of coexisting with COVID, and we're on that, we're definitely on that pathway, but we also want to make sure that we're supporting people and protecting people who are at higher risk, whether they're in a situation where they're at higher risk of getting COVID, or whether they're in a situation where they may have higher risk of severe illness.
How are we doing for self-care from products from the drugstore that maybe would deal with someone that feels they have it, and maybe they even did a self-test and found out that they had it, but they're not sick enough that they feel they need to go to the hospital. So how are we doing with those type of solutions, I guess, from the drugstore? Are they available now?
So we are really fortunate that in Thurston County, we do have access to antiviral medications. They are available with a physician's prescription. A lot of healthcare systems, folks should definitely reach out to their healthcare providers, but often, especially if someone, has tested or has symptoms of COVID, definitely call ahead to your healthcare provider, because often, depending on disease severity, the best course of action may be to have a remote visit or a consultation in that regard. But yes, antivirals as well as antiviral medications and COVID-19 treatments are available here in Thurston for folks who need it.
And how does this virus respond to the normal in-home care I don't know, I've heard of a product called TheraFlu. I suppose there's many out there, but how's the virus respond to that self-treatment?
So to be honest, we don't have a lot of data on whether or not there's a benefit to TheraFlu or other over-the-counter remedies. To be honest, I know that there's a lot of interest, but I haven't seen hard data yet.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer, questions?
No.
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Dr. A. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to our next item, homeless strategies.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. I have just a very brief updates for you, and Tom Webster is also with me today to give a rent assistance update. So just for your information, City of Olympia did clean DeVoe and Patterson Street. There were a number of vehicles and liveaboards there where folks were in RVs and other ancillary vehicles living alongside the road. And at this point, I think there's one remaining that's moving today. So that's an update. And then last week, we were able to go to the Franz Anderson property over in the City of Olympia and took a tour of that and started the planning process with the City of Olympia. Just kind of brainstorming, looking at length of time. We're at the very beginning stages of that, but we did get a chance to see that property and start that process. And that's really all I have for today with homeless strategies. Tom?
Good morning, Commissioners. Just a brief update on rent assistance, specifically with Live Stories. So we continue to move forward working with Live Stories. They are reaching out to kind of contact and work through applications with our priority populations, which are those folks who had an approved application with CAC or currently kind of have a 14-day notice. So we're working with those applicants to get them served. Live Stories did provide a training for our partner organizations on Monday. So we're bringing our partner organizations up to speed and getting them training so they'll be able to start serving their clients here very shortly. So we continue to move forward with Live Stories and increase their capacity to continue to serve applicants moving forward. So that's my update for this week.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Tom, have we got our information back from the CAC yet?
Not at this time, no, sir.
And I have an executive session scheduled for tomorrow afternoon to go over the overall status of this.
Okay. Yeah. Good enough, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer, questions?
On rent assistance, has a check gone out the door to anyone? We've gotten public comment the last 4 weeks, I think. Obviously, you can't respond to that particular person, but are checks flowing out the door yet, or are we still in some process of ramping up?
Checks, I will check with Live Stories. Checks have not literally gone out the door, but I believe they will start going out the door this week. They have some that are ready to go. They're just, there is a process to go through to kind of do some verification before checks can go out. So I think checks should start going out this week, but I will verify that with Live Stories.
This is probably a county manager question, but the Franz Anderson property, it's acquired, it's gone through.
The Franz Anderson property has been acquired, is already closed. What Keely is mentioning is a field visit to determine the level of improvements they will need to do in order to accommodate the interim plan, which is bring all the RVs to this property.
The City of Olympia was part of that tour. And
The City of Olympia is the one who is taking the lead, is within the City of Olympia boundaries, so they need to go through their own permitting process, and we're here to support that effort. My hope is that we can probably have something in place later in the year, early next year, and hopefully we can have a comprehensive approach to this. So the plan is moving forward as we presented to the board, and yeah, it's just a lot of logistical steps that we need to go through in upgrading the site itself to house the RVs. But the most important thing is the support behind it. It's not just about bringing the RVs to the site, it's making sure that we'll have the support services within. Anything to add to that, Keely or Tom?
No, I think that's an excellent summary.
I'm good, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have one question in regards to the, not a question really, but just maybe if the county manager could provide this update. I know, as Commissioner Menser stated, there are some citizens that come who are interested specifically in what's going on with the rental assistance part. So is there a way that, is it possible for you to provide kind of an update similar to what Tom just did this afternoon?
Yeah, certainly. I'll work with Tom and provide an overall update this afternoon. Thank you. Yes.
And then my next is in regards to, Keely, have you heard, I know DOT got funding to aid with these cleanings. Has there been any more mention of that? Is there any coordination that they're doing with either the county or the cities?
Yes, they just worked with the city of Olympia, I think 2 Fridays ago, to clean the Slater Kinney on-ramp. So they are working with the local jurisdictions around rights of way. And then those individual jurisdictions would be working on the provisions to provide some kind of alternate housing. So City of Olympia is the most recent one, however.
Okay. I was wondering if they were coordinating with us or what was going on. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, thank you, Keely. Thank you, Tom. We'll move on to our next item, which is the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting of April 12th, 2022. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards, approval of the Tuesday, April 12th, 2022 agenda, approval of the board meeting minutes from April 5th, 2022. Then we'll go with an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, I will be providing an update on the rental assistance, and I believe that I don't have anything to follow up based on last week's testimony.
Questions, comments?
No.
Okay. Then we'll,
Madam Chair,
yes, sir.
is there any chance that we could have the board meeting minutes from April 5th attached to our agenda at the meetings? I don't know how we're doing on that, but I get asked that question. And I know we approve it, so.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, let us, so to attach to the agenda packet.
Yes, so it's right there in the hallway when people come in. You know, it'll be part of this. It'll be part of our morning.
Let us work on that. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to consent items A through C. Consent item A, Solid Waste Advisory Committee amended by bylaws approval.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe you reviewed this item last week, and this is a follow-up to a briefing that you received from the solid waste manager. And that briefing was provided to the board back in December 2021. And some of the updates on the bylaws, at that point, the Board of County Commissioners requested a couple of changes related to the election of officers, and also how the length of the membership, as well as how vacancies will be filled. So I believe this Solid Waste Advisory Committee met on January 5th and discussed these particular changes. And on March 2nd, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee passed a motion to revise the bylaws in accordance to the Board of County Commissioners' requests. And this is the final version for you to approve the bylaws. Jeff Bickford is here to provide additional perspective on this.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Bickford, Solid Waste Manager. I believe that the County Manager gave a good overview of the process to date. And I'm willing to answer any questions.
No
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Mentor?
No.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. With that, item B, it's Central Services Resolution reclassifying position 25R01436.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I believe you also reviewed this item last week. And this proposal is to reclassify the vacant position from a equipment mechanic to a fleet operations crew chief. And this has a little bit of a history with the union, the local 618 CEO. But at some point, it was a conversation that needed to have having a lead mechanics to play the role of a lead mechanics, which included a 5% temporary pay increase to perform the higher duties. Through this process, it was determined that perhaps the best assessment to this particular group will be to create a new fleet crew chief. And that has been the best approach, the staff, as well as coordination with the union, to be the next step as to how we need to proceed this. So the salary increase from the mechanic is from equipment mechanic to operations crew chief. It goes from $5,920 to $6,527. That is just about a significant increase. However, based on this approach, will eliminate the 5% temporary pay increase. So the impact on the budget, which is the ER&R, the fund is not general fund, will be somewhat of a net zero impact on the fund itself. Bruce is here to answer provide additional perspective related to this request.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, ma'am, thank you.
I apologize, Bruce, did you have anything to add?
Just going to introduce myself, Bruce Robert, Fleet Services Manager. Thank you.
I apologize. I jumped the gun. Commissioner Menser, any questions?
No.
I don't have any. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Next item is Clerk of the Board.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a new item for your consideration this afternoon. As you know, Amy Davis, the Clerk of the Board, has presented her resignation. The last day she's planning to have is the end of April 2022. So I am in the urgency to find a replacement, and I'm hoping to appoint a Clerk of the Board hopefully by this week. I'm conducting a couple of conversations even as we speak, and with the hope that we will have somewhat of an overlap, so we can have Amy download the institutional knowledge to the new person. So this particular action is for you to authorize me to appoint the Clerk of the Board as soon as possible.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, I don't know what the benefit package or compensation is for the position, but is that something we should be thinking about for retention and application? Are we gonna discuss this at some point? It's a rather unique position.
Yeah, certainly down the road can be discussed. I
know we can't wait to do that, but I think at least it ought to be on the table, so maybe all parties concerned might be aware that we're thinking about that. I don't know where HR is coming from yet.
No, just to give a
analysis.
perspective, the Clerk of the Board is the same classification, the same salary range as any executive assistants across the county.
Okay.
We reclassified that position maybe 18 months ago.
Okay.
That we brought a little bit to market, what we call.
Okay.
But if the board is interested in reviewing this and the other applications, maybe a good place on the class and comp project that we're embarking on. And they will be reviewing all applications, not just this one. Will that work?
Yeah, that's good for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
I guess my question is, this action that we're taking, is it required legally? Because in terms of, the board, what are we doing this just to cover bases? Is this like, you can't make this appointment without this action? How are we legally on this?
I came across last week reviewing the job application for the clerk of the board, and this is appointed by the board.
Okay.
And I missed that on the this classification to include it on the overall resolution that you passed a couple of maybe 2 years ago. So this will hopefully will align to that if that is the desire.
So this isn't just about this particular action, this is a permanent
Yeah,
change of process for clerk of the board
appointments.
appointments. Did everybody understand that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate.
I guess
the-
we're probably gonna look towards your guidance on a recommendation maybe or
Right,
something.
and obviously I will keep you informed as we go along. And that's what I'm planning to do. Because this seems to be, that's the only position that is appointed by the board and that is in addition to the county manager.
And the county health officer.
In the county health, that's the board of health actually, but yeah.
Okay.
So I'm confused. So this would permanently change it to that?
Yeah, that's the intent, man. That's what I don't have a date on this. It will change the job classification.
Comments, questions from anyone else?
Not at this point.
Okay.
So hold on. So, like when Amy was hired, we did
I specifically asked the board to authorize me to present that offer.
okay, so it did go through us, even though we weren't interviewing candidates and all of that, okay. But that won't be necessary if we take this action, you'd be making that decision, right?
Oh, well, what was wrong with the old way? I guess would be
Well,
my question.
Timing.
Timing?
If you want to, if you want to go through
Okay,
a process, I'll be more than happy to do so. And I'm absolutely stressed out about the timing.
okay.
And,
How about if this said upcoming appointment? And then if we have something down the road in the future, we need to discuss this, then we're not
However,
locked in, huh?
However you like to go through this, commissioners, as long as I have.
I mean, there must have been a reason for it at some point. that's
At
all.
least I have the
I
option.
need to make the change without reviewing it.
Permanent change.
Yeah.
Well, we changed the classification, the clerk, we upgraded at the same time, we upgraded the salary, and it was about 18 months ago. That we aligned to all the executive assistants for appointed directors and
Okay.
so, and that part of the classification remained. So, whatever you like to do, as long as you give me the opportunity to go ahead and appoint somebody this week. That's really the
I'm good for that, I just don't wanna change overall policy from now on, is my preference on it. I'd say, yeah, give the county manager the authority to do this as we need to do it, but let's talk about permanent job classification authority later.
Well, is that,
Is that okay?
I mean, I'd like to hear Commissioner Mejia, but I'm leaning toward Commissioner Edwards on that, unless she wants to talk me out of it.
I don't know enough about how it was done, so it's beforehand, right? And so I was listening to actually both, Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Menser for kind of to see how Amy, was appointed beforehand, but it doesn't seem so. I'm okay with talking more about it. I don't feel.
It was 28 years before that we had the needs for this process.
Hey, I'm the only one who was here at that time, I was the sheriff.
Obviously, with the disappointment of Amy resigning, I didn't expect we were gonna be here, having this conversation, honestly, so soon.
Sure.
But it is what it is, so I will revise the action to say, move to authorize the county manager to appoint the current vacancy of the clerk of the board.
Good enough.
And Robin, you had your hand up.
I'm going to support the action that the county manager just described.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
So,
I think that it's worth looking at the RCWs about the clerk of the board as you make this long-term decision.
Very good, good point.
yeah.
good point, Robin. Thank you. And then department items, why is the approval of the voucher list?
Yes, I have a response to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so moving on to department items, item 4A, it's the approval of the voucher list.
Yes, this is a department item usually is included on the consent agenda. I believe Commissioner Edwards requested when is any items related to the expenditures related to the atrium, that he would like to exercise your vote
Yes, sir.
independently. So that's the reason why it's a department item. So in this particular voucher list on page 74, there is $269. The use of credit card that we use to advertise the request for proposals related to the furniture related to the atrium. So that's the reason why you have that as a department item.
Okay.
Uh,
Questions,
yes.
Commissioner Edwards?
And on that topic, I know we're going out for the RFP on the furniture, on that issue. Has that been submitted yet? Have we got responses back to that?
We have responses back. We're currently evaluating the responded documentation. And at some point, we'll bring to the board, hopefully soon, for the board to consider awarding the contract for furniture. Robin?
I'm having a meeting later today with the project manager, Chris Helmer, to review the furniture proposals. So we'll be able to tell you more very soon.
Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to central services, item 5A, large vehicle surplus service contract.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe the board reviewed this particular proposal. And this particular proposal is to waive the competitive bidding requirements to award a purchasing contract with Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers. And this is for the intent to have a sale of heavy vehicles and equipment since the county awarded this particular process to the same outfit back in 2015. Ritchie Brothers is an auction company specializing in heavy equipment, and that makes sense for us to utilize their services. This particular item was reviewed by the Interlocal, and he has agreed for you to consider waiving the competitive bidding requirements since this is a local company and moving heavy equipment probably makes sense to utilize their expertise. Bruce?
Morning again, Bruce Rover, Fleet Services Manager. Ready to answer any questions regarding this contract. It would be heavy vehicle specific. We would continue to use DES auction services for light vehicles.
Thank you, Bruce. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
My only question is be the internal auditor in that type of issue. We're all good.
Yeah, and that's what I stated. The Interlocal has looked into this proposal. It is signed in favor of this.
All good.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And he signed it on March 28, 2022.
Commissioner Menser, questions?
No.
And, okay, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 6A, and it's ARPA Program Evaluation Study.
I believe the board had some conversations related to this item last week. And this is a proposal for you to consider an amendment to the current contract that we have with the Thurston Economic Development Council, the EDC related to the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funds. The Economic Development Council is the fiduciary outfit. They help us with the distribution of the ARPA funds related to the Thurston and Strong outfit. The Department of Treasury requires any local jurisdiction to conduct a multi-year program and project evaluation on all related to ARPA funded programs. I believe last week, Jenica explained to the board the Economic Development Council appears to be it is at this point is the best outfit to provide this particular services in order to meet the requirements of the Department of Treasury. I believe there were some questions as to where the money will come from. This particular amount is $589,387.19. And also those, that amount will have to come from the ARPA funds and is an eligible item. I believe the question is, the board has been involved in the distribution of the ARPA funds. And over the last few months, there has been a lot of some changes related to that, but also the board has been cognizant that any type of shift on that has an effect on any other allocations the board has made. So knowing that, Robin will provide a perspective on this as to how this has already been included in the overall process. Robin?
Right. So thank you, Romero. As Romero said, we've known from the very beginning when we accepted this grant that there would have to be a program evaluation component. So we did earmark, and the board, the allocations that the board approved have an earmark of just under 600,000, just enough to cover this contract for program evaluation and data analysis. So this is already accounted for in your allocations. And I do want to say how much I appreciate that you've taken to heart that all of the money has been allocated. So thank you for being cognizant of that.
Thank you, Robin. Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
Was Jenica going to say anything? I do have a comment.
Okay. Jenica, do you have?
I'm free to answer any questions. I don't have any additional information from what was shared last week and what Robin shared on the budget.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
And then I had an opportunity to speak with Michael Cade about this as well, so I'm perfectly content with this. Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No.
No, and I don't either. Thank you, Robin, for that clarification on it. My concern was making sure. I know you've been hammering it into us that, you always have to know what we're taking away from. So I appreciate that. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next item, interlocal agreement for regional electrification cost assessment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe you also reviewed this item last week. And this is, again, one of the strategies to begin the implementation of the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan. And this particular proposal is to identify building electrification as one of the most important strategies. This is what the Climate Mitigation Plan says. So this assessment and evaluate the financial implications associated with constructing new homes, businesses, and mixed-use establishments to integrate the electronic infrastructure. I believe this item has been already discussed, and it was awaiting just going through the process of this interlocal agreement, and finally has come to the point of for the board to consider approving this interlocal agreement with the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. The cost associated with this ILA is $7,619. As you may recall, the board set aside, I believe, about $300,000 for climate mitigation strategies, and this money will come from that pot of money. Any questions?
Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
Commissioner Menser's got his hand up there, please.
I was just going to add, as a point of information, that the amount reflected is 25%. The costs are divided equally between the 4 jurisdictions, so this is 25% of the overall cost of this.
Oh, thank you for the clarification. And this has been the same share.
Rather than proportional to population or some other formula that we sometimes use. This is, which usually, a pretty good deal for the county.
Actually, this is a lot cleaner than the population base.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Menser. Questions?
I guess I would just ask this question as we move forward on this process. This is just kind of to study and figure out a way that we might want to make this happen. But my concern is a broader picture, and that is where we are making an active move towards, for an example, electrification in building, but also electric vehicles. And we don't have an infrastructure in place to handle both at this point in time, nor in the immediate future. We've got a vast amount of coal production, producing electricity, and things like extracting raw materials from the earth to make the batteries that we need to have to either have that electrification capability on a vehicle or on the side of a residence, for an example, to store power. We're not there yet on going completely to an electrification process, and that kind of bothers me that we're attempting to get the cart before the horse on this particular issue. Even people like Elon Musk, who is talking about, he's making his zillions from electric vehicles, is recognizing the fact that our infrastructure is falling short. So it's just a point of interest that I have in this particular topic, that we make sure that we're exploring all aspects of a particular move we might be making. So I'm not opposed to studying this. I'm just stating that as a fact. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Menser, any additional comments, questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I don't have either. Okay. With that, we'll move on to Public Works, item 7A, contract award for Grand Mound General Sewer and Wastewater Facility Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, we have a closed landfill in the Hacksbury area at the Waste and Recovery Center. And the closed landfill requires the county to manage the closed landfill for 20 years. So we're still in that process. As a result of managing the closed landfill, I know this is the wrong item. My notes are a little bit off. My apologies. This is related to the solid waste, Grand Mound solid waste facility. Thank you. I was looking at my wrong notes. This particular item, I believe you reviewed last week, and the issue is how we're going to be growing the wastewater utility in the Grand Mound area to accommodate for future development. And this is really a key aspect of this. The last plan that we had, the wastewater facility plan, was prepared back in 1996. And I think it's just time for us to review this. The Department of Ecology requires for us to prepare what they call a plan for maintaining adequate capacity of the PMAC. Within that process, as you know, the Grand Mound area is growing, and the wastewater plant needs to grow along with it. So in order to determine how we're going to be able to grow in order to meet the requirements of the Department of Ecology, as well as to meet the demands of the growing population in this area, the department issued a request for qualifications back in January 2022 after getting approval for the board. And they received a proposal for Gray & Osborne. This is an engineering firm. They will probably go through the process in determining what the plan will be in order for us to move into the future. This particular amount is for this contract is $284,000, and this will come from really the ground mount utility. So it's not general fund. I believe Joe is here. Yes, to add additional perspective. So my apologies that I confused the board on a different item at the beginning.
Good morning, commissioners, and thank you, County Manager. I think your outline was spot on. I'm available to answer any questions.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, is there any chance, Joe, you could tell us at what percent of total capacity we're at right now with our system down in Grand Mound? And I know bringing Great Wolf Lodge online had a lot to do with bringing that up to wherever you're gonna come in. So where are we at on that?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Edwards. Yeah, so the PMAC is triggered by the Plan for Maintaining Adequate Capacity, which will be satisfying by completion of this wastewater facility plan, is triggered by 85% of the discharge permit limit being reached. And that's for total suspended solids, biological oxygen demand, or total flow into the plant. We exceeded, or we approached that number, I should say, back in 2019. We pulled back a little bit during COVID, and now we're kind of ramping up again. And I expect, within the next year, we're gonna reach that 85% level.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Munster, questions?
No.
I don't have questions. Thank you, Joe. Okay, with that, we'll move on for requests for proposals for Long Lake Algae Control.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The request for your considerations to authorize the Public Works Department to issue a request for proposals to request the services of a consultant contractor to deal with the algae bloom in Long Lake. Back in 2020, Long Lake experienced the most significant pronounced and prolonged harmful algae bloom, in which was forcing the homeowners inside to escape the foul odor and the decayed algae that persisted for months. I believe in 2021, there was a strategy developed including 2 phases as to how we're going to be managing in coordination with the Lake Management District for Long Lake. Before I can get to more detail on what the phase approach will be, I would like probably ask Paula to walk us through what the phase approach was, because I believe in 2021 we went through and implemented phase 1 of the overall approach. Is that correct?
Yes.
You can walk us through a little bit more in detail what the phase 2, and I believe this item is related to the phase 2 approach.
Yes, absolutely. So good morning, Commissioners, County Manager. Thank you for your time this morning. Paula Cracknell, Aquatic Resource Specialist, Thurston County Public Works. In 2021, we began a new phosphorus management program on Long Lake. And our goal was to lock the available phosphorus into the sediment so that it would not be available in the water column for reproduction during the warm summer months. We went in May and did a whole lake alum treatment. And then we followed that up a couple weeks later with a product called Phoslock, which is a clay compound into the deep areas of the basin, 12 feet deep and over. We had great control from that until the lake started to turn over in the fall. And at that point, the Lake Management District decided to not do a repeat treatment with the Phoslock, rather to wait until this year to attempt to do the whole strategy again. So in 2022, we're planning on using alum all the way out to the shorelines and following up later in the season with Phoslock as needed. We have been monitoring the phosphorus levels in the lake. We took a core sample last October, which showed that we still have quite a bit of phosphorus available. So repeat treatment will help with continued success at managing algae blooms.
Thank you, Paula. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, it doesn't say so. I think it kind of implies, but this is in conjunction with support from Long Lake Management District as well, right?
Yes.
This will move. Thank you very much. I'm good.
Commissioner Munster?
So the use of alum, you took the effort to say all the way to the shorelines. Is that not how it's been done before, or not how it's been done in other places, or not how it's recommended to be done? Is that a concerning?
No, it's just not how we did it last year. We were about 12 feet out, but the Lake Management District has requested that the contractor we select take the alum treatment all the way as close to the shoreline as possible.
And when you say, you've said this before about the alum locking the phosphorus into the sediment, and I'm just wondering if you can explain, then what happens? Does it stay there forever, or can something dredge it up, or is it just adding cumulative? I mean, how is that helpful in the long term?
So what alum does is it creates a flock, which is kind of like a blanket. It's a good way to think about it, that covers the sediment, and it doesn't last forever. It will eventually dissolve. It kind of creates this fluffy organic matter type looking thing that stays on the bottom of the lake. So we had a treatment in 2008 in Long Lake where they did a really intensive treatment that's similar to what Black Lake did a couple of years ago. And that treatment lasted about 9 years until the algae bloom started to occur again. What we're doing with these treatments are lower dose and combining the two products so that we can get rid of what's available in the water column and also kind of make this blanket on the sediment surface. It will eventually dissipate. Wave action, just decomposition of plants on top of it all affect the longevity.
So when you say it dissolves or decomposes, are you talking about the phosphorus or the alum? Or, I mean, that may be a stupid question. I don't really understand the chemistry, but what are we talking about?
It's not a stupid question. It's the flock. So the alum, when it's applied to the surface, turns into a flock, which settles onto the bottom.
Then this quantity of phosphorus that we don't want in the water, does it decompose in some way, or does it just stay intact until the flock, as you call it, dissipates and then it rises back up? I mean, what is the long term, like in 15 years, if nothing else is done, are we just delaying, are we kicking a can down the road, or is this is there some argument that this is some kind of permanent positive benefit 20 years later or 15 years later?
Well, I wish that things...
Are we creating a bigger problem in 15 years because we put this kind of more Band-Aid type of approach?
That's a really good question. It is not a long-term strategy. It's not going to last for 20 years. It's going to provide relief for about 5 years or so, and also consistent monitoring of the system to see what the phosphorus levels are will really help to inform our management decisions. So it's not, what happens in a lake is most of the sediment load is stored in the sediment itself. The phosphorus just sinks to the bottom, it stays there, and it will eventually mix in with the water column when the lake turns over. So what the alum treatment is it's preventing that phosphorus from precipitating from the sediment during periods of lake stratification, so that when the lake turns over, you're not getting this huge flush of phosphorus into the system, which is what the cyanobacteria and algal cells really enjoy. And the phoslock is sequestering the phosphorus that is in the water column. So the two are working together. And in a eutrophic system, it is necessary to consistently manage to reduce these algal blooms. And the reason why the algae in particular is an issue is because when it can become toxic when there's a bloom. And toxins can be detrimental for human health and also for pets and for any type of enjoyment on the lake. So it is a public health concern, in addition to just being an algae-filled lake.
But the,
Okay, go ahead.
understand that you can manage and then test and then use that to inform further management. But I guess my bottom line concern, I didn't quite hear the answer, is taking this kind of approach, making it worse later? Or is it, you think it can be managed in kind of a steady state way for, looking down 10, 15, 20 years?
Well, it will be.
Are we increasing our challenge in 10 years by taking this kind of a?
No, there's no data that support that using an alum treatment saves it up and makes it worse over the years. The lake that is eutrophic, such as Long Lake, will continue to be in that life stage. So it's not something where it's holding on to the available phosphorus for a bigger flush later. Unfortunately, algae blooms are increasing a lot. So management of the algal blooms is kind of where we're at right now with maintaining these systems.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So my question is in regards to getting it closer to the shoreline and kind of what does that accomplish? Why is this, why wasn't there this request last year, but there is this year? Was there something that didn't quite work last year and so they're trying to make it work this year?
Well, we're seeing different types of algae that are closer to the shoreline. We're seeing a lot of filamentous algae, which kind of scaffold and grow on top of plants. And so the hope is if we get it closer to the shoreline, where the alum is applied is where it stays. So the alum isn't going to move around the lake. Once it creates that flock and sinks, that's where it's going to hang out. So if we can get, 10 feet or so within the shoreline, then hopefully we can get better control of that filamentous algae.
When this treatment is applied, is there a certain time where, boats can't be on the water or people can't swim, or is it something where, they can do it and there's not going to be any kind of impact?
There's no impact that I am aware of.
So
last year there were boats out on the water at the same time.
Okay. And then people can still get in the water and that's fine?
I suppose so. When this treatment's applied, the water's usually really cold. So I haven't personally experienced that, nor have I read anything that says there's any swim restriction on the water during this application. So no, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Any further questions, comments?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Okay, that will move on to the, thank you, Paula. Right away, a vacation on a portion of 70th Avenue Northeast.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe you reviewed this item as well last week, and for your consideration is to move to approve a resolution to vacate right away known as 70th Avenue. And this is located in the Boston Harbor area. On November 9, 2021, a public hearing was held the hearing examiners to vacate 60-foot width of right-of-way on 70th Avenue. And this particular donation, it was given to the county back in October 24, 1907. And I believe in your packet there is a map depicting where this particular vacation is.
I think there was last week.
Looks like this. No, my apologies.
I didn't see it in here earlier. But I believe I saw it last week.
My apologies, we should have included that on your packet. But this is
It's not there?
Attached, is it a free-form document or is it attached to something else? No.
Did you say 60-foot right away?
Yeah, it's 6-foot width.
60 foot?
Yeah.
Because for that era, 60 was pretty broad.
Yeah,
pretty wide.
and you know, in order for the county to consider any, vacation of right-of-way, means the county has not opened for public use and the county has not spent any dollars in maintaining it. And that has been the case since this particular item was deed to the county back in 1907. So this has already been developed. This is within somewhat of a landlocked area. And in the recommendations from the hearing examiners is for you to consider vacating this particular piece of property with conditions. And the conditions is the underlying property owners that will benefit from this vacation will have to pay to the county as a result of this vacation. Craig, would like to add any additional perspective on this? In the meantime, I can probably make copies of the map if the board is interested. My apologies if that's not included.
We discussed this last week.
Okay.
I don't need it.
I don't need it either, yeah. Okay, Craig, any additional?
Good morning, Commissioners. I have nothing to add. This was discussed last week. This is part of our standard vacation process, and this, as noted, was a 1907 plat. And I have nothing to add other than that. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, ma'am.
Commissioner Menzer?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. Next, it's the ordinance to adopt the 2022 edition of the Drainage Design and Erosion Control Manual.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the last step in the process as a result of you holding a public hearing on April 5th, 2022, where you received no public testimony, I believe. And this related to the changes to the drainage design and stormwater control manual. As the staff has provided you some briefings, this is required by the Department of Ecology in order for them to issue the Phase 2 municipal water permit. Shannon, any additional perspective? I know the board has reviewed this on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Shannon Peterson, Utility Planner with Public Works, and I don't have any additional comments, or I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Shannon. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Would it be appropriate to have in part of this action as required by the Washington State Department of Ecology? And the only reason I ask that, it just makes it clearer to citizens that are reviewing it. If ecology does require this, then why not tell the public that? But I'm not sure.
That might be, if with all due respect, that might be too narrow of a requirement. Because the Department of Ecology issues the permit. And in order for them to issue the permit, we need to have this particular plan in place.
Okay. It's just a formality upgrade, kind of, isn't it? I mean, we have to do some things, but
yeah,
but we have to follow the rules. Even though we sometimes disagree.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
No, good.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Thank you. Okay, next is the resolution repealing Resolution 12083 and adopting a new resolution updating criteria for establishing or revising speed limits on county roads.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is again, another last step in the process as a result of you holding a public hearing April 5th, 2022, related to proposed changes as to how we evaluate changes in speed limits on county roadways. Unless you have additional questions, or I believe the board has been briefed on this particular matter. Staff provided a good overview on the opening of the public hearing. The councilman is here to answer any additional questions.
I have nothing further to add. I think we've exhausted this topic, so unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, Matt said it all. Thank you.
I agree with Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, with that, we'll review. That will conclude our agenda. We will be reporting on board work sessions and assigned committee meetings, and then the county manager will review the Board of County Commissioners schedule. We will adjourn, and then we will pick up at 3 or shortly thereafter for a public hearing for precinct boundary changes and county commissioner district legal descriptions.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. For your consideration this afternoon is 2 actions. One is for you to close the public hearing. In the event, depending on the public testimony you might receive, for your consideration as an option is for you to approve the ordinance to change the precinct boundaries, and also another ordinance to change the legal descriptions of the Board of County Commissioners districts. And again, if depending on the public testimony, if you like to defer this particular action, we can bring that back to another board meeting 2 in the afternoon on Tuesday.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Is there a time element that Mary Hall is requesting on this issue?
I don't want to speak for the county auditor, but I think there's a sense of urgency to get through this.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, that there's other things pending too, is farther down into the year that we might move into.
But I want to respect your decision making process.
Any report from Commerce on our population yet?
No, hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Menser, questions?
Nope, I'll be ready to take action if needed.
I will too.
Okay, thank you. And just as a heads up, I will be Zooming this afternoon, just due to childcare issues. So I will be tuning in from here. Okay, next on our agenda is the review of the Board of Health draft agenda for our meeting April 12th. I will hand this to the chair.
Madam Chair, before you do that,
Yes.
well, I see Tilly's gone now. Tilly was there. I just didn't know if she had a comment or anything.
I'm sorry. I didn't see her
But
pop
that's
up.
fine. Okay, no, we're good.
Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize.
One of the problems of not, of this remote business. So, good, thank you.
Okay.
The chair's ready at the health department, I think.
Okay, very good. 3:30 is the scheduled meeting time, although it might be shortly thereafter. We will look at approval of agenda and meeting minutes from March 22nd, 2022. And then we will have 2 proclamations. One is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Second is National Public Health Week. And looking up interim Public Health Director Kurt Harden. Kurt, anything you'd like to say about what we're going to be doing here with proclamations?
First one, a proclamation for the Sexual Assault Awareness Week. I will read off some information about that. We'll also have 2 guests who will be present for that. Lisa Wall, a registered nurse with Providence Sexual Assault Clinic and Child Maltreatment Center, and then also Detective Carrie Nastansky, I hope I got that correct, with the Thurston County Sheriff's Office. So that'll be the first proclamation. The second proclamation will be the normal proclamation for National Public Health Week that we normally do every year.
Questions from board members?
Do we have those proclamations available? I just don't see them.
I don't have
No, you
either.
don't have either?
No.
Maybe.
We'll make those available, Commissioner. My
Yeah.
apologies.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner,
Shows the importance of one of our other earlier items, I guess.
Commissioner Mejia, any questions about these?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay. The public will have the opportunity to address the Board of Health. The agenda item, or department items has been revised, and Kurt, you can maybe weigh in on this. Well, the first item is implementation status of Deschutes River, total maximum daily loads. We did have a second item related to fentanyl, and there was a request from the clerk of the Board of Health, and maybe Kurt, you were part of that as well, to delay that for till next month. Is that the plan?
That's the plan, because after listening to the discussion from last Tuesday and the additional information, this is going to be more of a multi-departmental or office presentation as well, including the coroner's office, sheriff's office, potentially prosecuting attorney's office. So we want to make sure we get an integrated and synchronized presentation for you. So we would ask to have that in May instead of April.
Okay, and that's based on, you had conversation with Commissioner Edwards about kind of what the scope of this item ought to be?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Then let's look at, so there'll be only one departmental item here, and it's going to be regarding the TMDL and Art Starry.
I'm sitting in for Art,
Okay.
and so I just wanted to let you know that I think this was discussed last week. We'll have Department of Ecology present to do a presentation, and this is essentially an update for what's taken place in previous presentations from Department of Ecology as far as TMDL. Presentation provided an update for the implementation status of the Deschutes River TMDLs, including overview of associated Department of Ecology projects with the Deschutes River watershed and major aspects of the implementation effort that require continued work and attention. Ecology is going to also address the next steps associated with water quality improvement in these areas, especially as they relate to the goals of the Deschutes River TMDLs and the upcoming Bud Inlet TMDL for dissolved oxygen.
Okay, who is the person do we know the name of the person that will be giving the presentation?
We do. I don't have that in front of me though,
Okay.
And I can get that back to you.
Okay, no problem, just curious. Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
Commissioner Edwards?
Maybe of Kurt, is enterprise services taking place in this at all because of the lake issue? They got a piece of the action?
Not to my knowledge, but we reached out to Ecology to coordinate the briefing itself, and I am not sure at what point Ecology and Enterprise Services at the state level coordinate. I'm not familiar with their coordination. That might be a good question for Ecology this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Kurt, I want to just say this up front, and I don't know if you'll have a chance to connect with the presenter, but you characterize this as just an update of something previous, and this board has really, actually the last two boards, which are the two that I've sat on, have never been presented. I've had to figure TMDL out myself with separate meetings and reading thick letters and being really confused. So I guess what I'm getting at is I want this presenter to give us a little TMDL 101 to start things out and not assume that this is just an update to a knowledgeable group, because this is a really complex issue. How it works, how it fits into all the other things that we deal with at the county level with regard to the Deschutes River. And so I want to make sure that foundation is presented. So maybe if you can give them a heads up that they really need to not assume that we have prior knowledge of how this whole thing works. Because I'm going to have a ton of questions really about how the whole system works. Not so much the specifics, but how does this whole scheme fit into all the other schemes? Because this takes place at a federal level, it goes to the EPA. There's different levels of management here, and it's always been difficult for me to understand how the TMDL and what's gonna come out of it fits on top of all the other regulatory structures that we navigate, if that makes sense.
And Commissioner Mentor, my words were to let the public know that this is not a new initiative, but
Right.
I need to minimize it as this is just going to be a brief update. That this, my understanding is this is going to be a basic TMDL 101 to go in depth. That's my understanding, but I will also reach out and confirm that.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else from the board?
Not on that topic. I take it we're gonna hit a couple other ones.
Okay. The Board of Health members will have a chance to report on activities and accomplishments. We'll have our two standing items with the health officer's report and director's report. Questions from board members? Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
Yes, and I don't know, I think this would be probably to Dr. A, but I'm getting quite a few questions about at-home treatment of these new variants of COVID. And I wonder if the doctor couldn't help us with that topic as far as some generic, I guess is the best way to put it, in-home treatments for a better outcome if you come down with this, rather than overloading our doctor's offices and emergency rooms and going to the hospital. It seems like it's becoming kind of a more, and I keep referring to it as a flu, that might not be the right terminology to use, but as the consequences become less, and I know we always talk about vaccination and if you're vaccinated and all that, but what about general treatment? I mean, we might say the same thing, some of the same things during a regular flu season that we'd be talking about wellness issues. So I see the county manager's got his hand up here.
Just to, if I may try to clarify, would you like Dr. Abdulmalik to answer that question in the afternoon, the same fashion she answered this question this morning?
Yeah, but maybe in a little more in depth. I mean, when she gets done talking, sometimes we don't have a complete answer. I'll just put it that way.
Well, the difficulty, I don't think Dr. Abdulmalik will be in the position to prescribe.
She can't, but I mean, I don't know, wash your hands, take take an Advil, disinfect some things at home. I don't know the answers, but I know that there's general treatments that I used to hear from my great-grandma and my grandma, you know, do this or that. Why can't we just talk about betterment in general? Adequate sleep, drink a lot of fluids. You know, those aren't prescriptions. Those are just knowledgeable issues to point out to people. If they do some of these things, they may have a better outcome. She doesn't need to advertise any particular flu treatment or anything. I just think it's worth hearing from our medical professionals at this point in time, because we seem to be ever evolving, but even though we're ever evolving, it seems to be less detrimental outcomes, especially if you're vaccinated, I say. So.
No, I was just trying to understand why.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get people an answer to some of these questions they have.
Okay.
Commissioner Edwards, I'll take that question back to Dr. Abdulmalik and we'll talk about that. I think the generic wash your hands, cover your mouth, those kinds of things are for any type of situation, illness, are important. I think what she was referring to this morning is there's not a lot of science or data to back up home treatments for COVID. And I don't know if that's probably not what you're asking. I think what you're asking for is some more generic approaches, but I'll talk with her to see what we can come up with.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mejia, anything regarding anything on this Board of Health agenda?
No, the proclamations were in last week's agenda. If you need those for quick, but they were not on this week's. But so.
Okay.
We have them printed for this afternoon.
We'll make it available for this afternoon. That's what I hear from the interim clerk.
All right. And that will wrap up Board of Health, and back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Okay, next is the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting April 19th. Question, do we want to take a break now or do we want to take it after this?
No. Okay with that. My vote.
We'll go ahead
Two votes for now.
There's three, I think.
We'll go ahead and take a break now. It is 10:24, and so 10 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, we'll be back at 10:34. Thank you. Okay, and we are back for our agenda setting work session. We left off, it is 10:39 a.m. We left off with the review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of April 19th, 2022. So we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser, approval of the Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 agenda, and approval of the board meeting minutes from April 12th, 2022. At 2:05, we'll have two presentations. The first presentation will be a proclamation for Earth Day.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For your consideration is a proclamation to declare, proclaim April 22nd, 2022 Earth Day in Thurston County. We're going to be working to have members of our community attend that proclamation. Hopefully we can have Mr. Rob Monroe to come and be part of this conversation. We're working on the details of that, but certainly somebody from the community will be in attendance.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Commissioner Menser?
So I thought that Bob Barnes was going to have some kids from
Yeah.
Marshall Middle School or
Yes.
something. Okay.
Yeah. All that. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Very good.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Our next presentation will be a recognition for Bicycle Commuter Month.
Yeah, this is also, again, Commissioners, a yearly event where the board will consider recognizing the month of May 2022 as Bicycle Commuter Month in Thurston County. And we have our bicyclist star, Chris Hawkins, always been be part of this recognition. Chris is one of those individuals that he goes just about everywhere on a bicycle. Regardless whether it's summer, fall, winter, spring, he's always on the road, and he is just the right person to be part of this proclamation. Hey, Chris, are you planning to invite any members of the community?
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Hawkins, Program Manager with Public Health and Social Services, and happy to be able to be here to represent this proclamation again. It's a bit of a changed name for the Bicycle Commuter Contest for this year. It's been rechristened as the Bicycle Community Challenge, and Duncan Green from Intercity Transit will be a part of the proclamation as well. He's the program coordinator for the Bicycle Community Challenge at Intercity Transit, and he's a great promoter of this form of healthy, active living and environmental stewardship that goes with bicycle transportation and recreation. So that will be at least the two of us here next week for the proclamation.
Thank you, Chris. Questions, comments? Commissioner Edwards?
You know, Chris, you've got Bruce from Out of Fleet Services sneaking up on you as far as bicycle riding too, you know.
Oh, really?
We'd be, the more the merrier. Be happy to have Bruce and others from Thurston County's workforce, but also so many in the community. It's a great way to get people out participating and doing some of those preventive things you were mentioning earlier, Commissioner Edwards, that keep us healthier and living longer, happier lives.
Thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
I got a new bike in February, but I'm kind of waiting until it stops snowing.
You're a fair weather biker.
I'm a little bit fair weather bicyclist. But yeah, looking forward to getting out there. Maybe this will be my motivation I need.
Perfect. No, that is always exciting. Okay, thank you, Chris. With that, there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board, the county manager's update.
Yeah, I will follow up with any particular items that need to follow up as a result of this afternoon's public comment.
And then the approval of the voucher list.
Yeah, at this point, I didn't see any particular items related to the atrium, but if After a second review, I found that I will move it into the department items.
Thank you. Okay, so that concludes our consent items. Next is department items. Items 4A from Community Planning and Economic Development. Interagency agreement between Washington State University Extension and Thurston County.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commissioners, before you go into the details of this item, you will see a new item for your consideration next week. This is for you to consider approving an ordinance on the expansion related to the Board of Health. I was hoping to have that today, just we couldn't make that happen. So you will see that item for your consideration next Tuesday. And I believe that's a result of the public hearing that you had on this particular matter a couple of weeks ago. The item related to the interagency agreement with the Washington State University Extension. This is a yearly document the board will consider approving. And this is just to make sure that the extension receives the contribution from the county for $165,156. And this performance of this agreement is from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. This particular item is included on the budget. And this, again, the instrument as to how we can continue the coordination with the extension. Josh?
Thank you, County Manager. Yeah, as the County Manager said, this is an annual thing. Washington State University requires that we do this ILA every year. But it's also a good opportunity to reaffirm the partnership. WSU Extension has been a huge part of our community, whether it's helping kids through 4-H at the fair, or the native plant salvage, or with the release of the food boxes during the pandemic through the partnership with Pacific Mountain Workforce Development Council. So this is a great opportunity to affirm our partnership with WSU every year, and we appreciate the hard work of Stephen Bramwell's team and all the folks out there.
Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No questions.
And I don't have any questions either. Thank you, Josh. Okay, next department item is emergency services. Item 5A, public assistance grant, FEMA funding for COVID response.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ben Miller Todd, the acting emergency services director, is not in attendance, but Kurt is here on his behalf. This particular item is for you to consider approving a contract with the Department of Washington State Military Department related to the FEMA COVID response. As you have been involved since the beginning of the response, there has been many areas as funding sources as to how we can pay for the response through to the emergency. At some point, you may remember the FEMA, the President authorized FEMA to provide relief and assistance to local governments related to the COVID response. The FEMA is based on a reimbursable basis. So this particular item really sets the umbrella. The agreement that goes from January 20, 2020 to March 22, 2024. And what is happening at this point, this particular item does not have a dollar amount, because we will start sending for reimbursement for all the costs we have incurred so far. And we have been tracking this internally. So as soon as this agreement is in place, hopefully we can start asking for reimbursement for previous and current expenditures. At some point, the reimbursement from FEMA was at 100%. But as of April 1st, 2022, I believe the president of the country set it up for 75%, which I think that's the normal reimbursement basis for FEMA. But prior to April 1st, 2022, I believe it was 100% reimbursement. And again, we have been tracking this particular funding. Hopefully we can start getting some reimbursement through the process. Kurt? Robin?
County Manager gave a great summary. The only update I would provide is I want to confirm the matching requirement, because I'm not sure. I believe that they may have extended the 100% out to June 30th, but I want to double check that.
Oh,
and we'll get.
great.
information back to you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer? I don't have any. Oh, Robin, go ahead.
I would just add that as we have tracked costs to date, we are at just under $665,000 that we believe is eligible for FEMA. So this is a substantial amount of money connected to this grant.
Excellent.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Kurt. With that, we'll move to Public Works. Item 6A, it's contract award for closed landfill groundwater reporting services.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is the item that I started describing on the previous agenda. And this is related to the closed landfill the county has in the Hasbury area on the Waste Recovery Center. The requirement for our closed landfills is we need to manage for a period of 20 years. We're in the process, in the middle of that, so to speak. Is one of the elements that we need to do is making sure that we test and assess the water quality related to the closed landfill. The board authorized on the Poll Works permit to go through a request for proposals. And on March 17, 2022, the department received 2 proposals for the landfill groundwater reporting services. And in the result of that process, the department is recommending for you to award Landau and Associates this particular contract. There is a performance period of 5 years with a maximum cost of $300,000. The source of funding for this particular contract is the tip-in fees, and also known as the solid waste funds, and there is no general fund associated with this contract. Jeff?
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Bickford, Solid Waste Manager. Yeah, I agree with what the county manager has already laid out, and I do want to stress that this is a requirement for the Department of Ecology that we perform and submit quarterly reports as well as an annual report. And this report needs to be stamped by a certified hydrogeologist, which we do not have available, which is why we need to have this performed by an outside company. And with that, we're willing to answer any other questions.
Questions, commissioners?
I thought we did have a hydrologist on staff.
I don't know if he's certified.
Yeah, a certified hydrogeologist, yeah, which we do not have in Public Works.
We don't have that? Okay. How many more years how long have we been doing this? How long has landfill been closed that we've been following this process?
The landfill closed in 2000, so we've been at it for 22 years. And typically, with a post-closure permit from Ecology, you're always responsible for a minimum of 30 years of monitoring post-closure. And it could be more depending on the situation, but it's a minimum of 30.
I stand corrected.
Okay, I think that answers my question.
Thank you.
Right. We're also required to maintain funding to be able to pay for that activity. And the county does that. A part of our tipping fees goes to the fund that supports these programs.
And that was covered in our new contract, I take it.
Right.
Right? I mean, we'll continue that. That'll be the funding source for our.
Yes.
The funding source is tipping fees, yes.
Okay. So if we go 5 more years, then we'd do, like, if it was a 30-year deal, we could do a 3-year extension or something. Is that how you do it?
That would be correct, as this will put us through 2027. And then prior to the end of that, we will have to assess how many more years we'll need to do that. And then we'll have to go out again with another RFP to get us to whatever that final year is.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
300,000 max over 5 years. Is this, what did we spend the last 5 years?
It's been about just under 50,000. It's about 50,000 a year. And the quote that we got from Landau is a little bit underneath that, but this would be a maximum. So we should be under 50,000 a year, but this, in case there's any additional work that's required, there's some additional funds available if we have to do any additional monitoring or reporting.
But it sounds like then it's not a price increase at all from the
That is correct.
recent history.
We're pretty much about the same price as what we've been getting from the previous contractor.
Hurry and sign.
I don't have any questions. My question's been asked. Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to item 6B, resolution and call for sealed bids for 2022 chip seal project.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is also a yearly request from the Public Works Department for the board to authorize call for sealed bids for the 2022 chip seal project. And the chip seal project it addresses maintenance on several county roadways. In this particular year, they're going to be concentrating on the northeast quadrant of the county, as well as the southeast quadrants of the county's roadway system. The chip seal approach is less expensive than the actual overlay, as you may be aware. And the chip seal treatment have a life expectancy of 10 years versus the actual overlay process has a longer life expectancy, but also is more expensive. At this point, I believe the cost allocated for this chip seal is $2,900,000, and that is coming from the county road fund that's included on the Public Works Department budget. I myself will be interested to see how the proposals are coming in. As you know, the cost for oil and all the materials associated with that is getting expensive. So hopefully we can get a good bid, and hopefully we can do a similar amount of miles of chip seal this coming year. Vasil Barone is here from Public Works to answer any questions or other additional perspective on this.
Since my first class would be fantastic.
Can you hear me?
Oh, so this is Vasile Borota, Associate Civil Engineer with Public Works, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have about this year's chip seal project that will cover about 50 miles.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
At some point, we don't need it. I don't need it today if I get it. I'd like to see a map with that laid out on it. You're going to be doing this summer, just so we have some sense of when we get asked by constituents.
Yes, that would be an attachment to the call for seal bids. And I do have behind me the map. I don't know if it's visible that shows the area.
Maybe not, David Vasil.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. How about if when you go through the process, if the board authorizes to go with a call for seal bids, when you're bringing back to award the contract to the selected bidder, then we can have a map as to what areas and what roadways we're going to be chip sealing this year. Would that work?
Yes.
Gotta make sure Commissioner Edward District's not getting all the chip seal.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer, questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, I don't have any questions either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, item 6C, resolution and call for sealed bids for Little Rock Road Southwest culvert replacement near Sargent Road Southwest.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is particular request is authorizing the Public Works Department to call for sealed bids to replace the culvert on Little Rock Road Southeast near Sargent Road. And this is related to the fish barrier enhancement program that we have in place. This particular project will replace an existing 36-inch culvert, again located in Little Rock, and it will be replaced with a 40-foot long, 15-foot wide concrete culvert structure. We expected the engineer's estimate for the construction only at this point is $1 million. And it's funded portions of the real estate excise tax too, as well as we have a grant from the Salmon Recovery Fund for $45,000. Catherine?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Catherine Tran, and I'm an Associate Civil Engineer with Public Works. I don't have anything to add, but I am here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
My only question would be 45,000 out of $1 million doesn't seem like much of a contribution, and usually we do better. So what, did we fall down on the job or what happened?
You know, it's difficult to determine how the allocation of the grants are. I think honestly, this is the best effort at this point. In some instances, as you heard, we get additional funding from other locations, and the Salmon Recovery Fund has a different weight as to how they proportion those grant allocations.
Yeah.
So I don't believe there is a lack of effort from the department.
Okay, how about by doing this, how many upstream miles of spawning ground do we develop to the benefit of the fish?
For this this year, both Little Rock and Houston are adding about 3 miles of fish passage.
And what was the criteria, this is kind of for the public, what was the criteria in selecting this site? I mean, who participated in that selection process?
Marcus Storvik, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, and I think Commissioner Edwards is asking how their priority rating is being developed, and there's a lot of work associated with some of the key stakeholders, including the tribes in the county. So Marcus, you can probably elaborate on how that selection criteria works in selecting those top locations for replacement.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, County Manager. Marcus Storvik, Senior Civil Engineer, Public Works, help manage the fish passage program. So happy to help Catherine out on this one. And to Commissioner Edwards' question, there's a lot of different factors that go into these type of sites. You know, we look at habitat gain, we look at the deficiencies of the structures in question, how much ADT is involved, regional significance, whether there's stakeholders involved in this specific area that also have it ranked very high. So we start with a spreadsheet of all the barriers in the county and whittle it down based on those factors, you know, and they get points assigned. And then once we have a short list, we'll go out and take a look at it and field truth it is what we like to call it. So that way we know that we're putting the REIT dollars towards the best available sites. So we've definitely given those updates before, and it's the same process that we've been following that have been proven quite successful.
So we do some coordination with local tribes, Marcus?
That is, yeah, when I said regional stakeholders, correct, yes.
I guess as a follow-up on that, oftentimes when you have those regional stakeholders involved, they sometimes come to the table with potential revenue. So whether it be federal or the tribal participation or what. So that's kind of what I'm always pushing for. But in the description of this action, I would like to see that say somewhere in there, salmon benefit or something to do to let the public know that we're continuing to prioritize this as a big issue for our expenditures of our public funds of our own that we raise, and always emphasize that we're trying to get money from other sources. I'm I'm disappointed at 45,000. I'll just put it that way. I'm not saying you guys didn't ask for more, but I think I would have went and kicked on the door myself, but that's my position in life. So anyway, any chance we could get some adjustment here to show that this is a salmon enhancement activity?
Yeah, we can certainly add that description.
I'd like to have it on all the culvert replacements that are directly related to salmon activity, because I think the public is very interested in this.
Maybe if, for your consideration, this is called for seal bids. When we come back, the department comes back with an actual contract.
Yeah.
And then we can probably additional description. Would that work, or you want?
Well, that's okay. I just want to make sure we continue to emphasize that we're really going on this. This is a priority for us. That's all.
Scott, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Scott Lindblom, County Engineer. Hey, I'd just like to add on to what Marcus and Catherine were saying. We have been very proactive in reaching out to different funding agencies to look for outside funding. And in fact, in the earlier part of the program, the Nisqually tribe was generous enough to offer us, I believe, 2 grants to support the Pisner Road at Tobotten Creek, I believe, which really helped kickstart those projects. And with the coordination with the tribes and other agencies, we've been very proactive in reaching out. And it may sound like the $45,000 is a small amount, but there is really limited outside funding available. And I think, by trying to not, ask for all the local money that's available from the funding agencies, we've been successful in, getting pieces of that funding, which has helped advance several of these projects now. So, staff has been super proactive. And I think, highlighting that at the next agenda presentation, if we can certainly do that, which might help out.
Thank you. Commissioner Menzer, questions?
Yes. Marcus, you used the acronym ADT. What is that?
Thank you for calling me out on that. I do have a bad habit. Average daily traffic. So that is just a number that indicates how heavily trafficked a road is. So a higher ADT value means that there's more cars on it.
And therefore, we would want to give it more points on the prioritization scheme, or?
It affects more people. There's a greater benefit to that local community. It's not, to be quite honest, it's not a high weight. When you look across the board, there's a lot higher weights that we put out the factors, but it is a consideration we do look at since we have so many culverts across the county.
Okay. Since Commissioner Edwards brought this up, I just throw out that there's a project that we're working on with the Alliance for Healthy South Sound, which is our one of our Puget Sound recovery integrating organization for this region. And there's new money, $500,000 over 5 years to be deployed for capacity developing projects. And so we're all trying to figure out what we can do with this money that would be most effective. And the Squaxin Island tribe is proposing a comprehensive salmon culvert like inventory, because what we've seen, and I know you guys have run up against this. I mean, when I got on the board, we weren't even really talking to the tribes, and I helped working with Director Walker. I helped coordinate improving that communication. But we've got the state out there with its own obligation to deal with its own culverts, and they're often operating without any knowledge of where the county blockages are. So actually WASAC has jumped in and done a pilot project where they took 2 counties, and Thurston was one of those, to try to extensively map county blockages so that they can give that to the state, and so that the state is prioritizing the most impactful culvert. But when everybody's operating without even knowledge of what everybody else's responsible culverts are, you don't get the best choices made. So the Squaxin Island tribe is hoping that for Thurston County, we can spend this $500,000 to really solve that problem. And of course, we're just fleshing this out, and we're not even 100% sure that it meets the criteria of what this money can be used for. But it just kind of highlights this issue of how difficult this issue is to solve, and how much coordination it takes between the various entities involved. So I do appreciate, being as collaborative as possible, because ultimately what we're trying to do, the habitat restoration and the salmon recovery component of this, I know there are multiple benefits, but I believe that the Supreme Court of Washington has made clear that is the primary benefit, the treaty rights of the tribes, the ecological health of our salmon population for our entire community is really what we should be focused on. And sometimes we have to choose something else because the dollar amounts, we've got a certain amount of dollars and that project's too big, so we have to match what we've got with what can be done. I get all that, but the more information, the better. So hopefully we can get you guys even more information than you've got now, and that'll be really useful to your matrix and prioritization.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, our next item is resolution and called for sealed bids for Houston Drive Northwest culvert replacement.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is
Same one, right?
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
This is related to the previous item as well, related to the Fish Barrier Enhancement Program. In this particular case, the location is on Elk Inlet along the Houston Drive, and this project will replace the existing 48-inch culvert with a 36 feet by 12 feet wide concrete culvert. The cost anticipated engineer's estimate for this project is $450,000, and this will come from the real estate excess tax too, and I believe there is no grant funding on this project.
Thank you. Catherine, anything to add?
And I don't have anything to add, but I am here to answer questions.
Any questions on this one? Commissioner Edwards?
No, everything else I think that's been said applies. Thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. With that, our agenda will end. Commissioners will report on board work sessions and assign committee meetings. And then the county manager will review the Board of County Commissioners schedule for the week of April 19th. At 3 p.m. or shortly thereafter, we will have 2 public hearings. The first public hearing is a public hearing for Development Code Docket Item A through 7, Low Impact Development Lid Code Amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This has been a long process. This particular item, so you will be receiving public testimony related to the changes on the Low Impact Development Code Amendment, Item A-7. And for your consideration, based on the public testimony, you have 2 actions. One is to close the public hearing, and the second action for your consideration, depending on the public testimony, is to approve the changes on Thurston County Code, chapters 20.03, 20.07, 20.30, 20.308, and 23.04.
Andrew, anything to add?
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Bond here with Community Planning. I have no additional information to provide except that we have not received any public comment on this proposal to date. And I'm here for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Menser?
Nope.
And I don't have any questions. Thank you. Our next public hearing is in regards to a proposed condemnation.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This particular public hearing is related to for you to receive public testimony on an ordinance in which we will be authorizing the prosecuting attorney to begin condemnation proceedings on the property located in 26th Avenue Northwest in Olympia, Washington. And this is related to a nuisance property that we have been dealing with for the last few years, which is located nearby or next to the LP Brown Elementary School. This is a long process. I believe there is a put in the position for you to take public testimony, and also related to this item is an agreement that we have been working with the Olympia School District in partnership to address this particular property, nuisance property. For your consideration, you have two actions at the public hearing. One is to close the public hearing. And again, depending on the public testimony, for your consideration will be for you to authorize this particular action. Craig Shalom is here, I believe. Oh, Josh is here to cover this item. If you have any additional questions.
Josh, anything to add?
Thank you, Commissioner. So yeah, this is a big item. Craig Challen is our compliance supervisor who has taken this property all the way through the Title 26 process as the Board of County Commissioners have provided. And this is difficult. This is a nuisance property that, as the county manager mentioned, is adjacent to LP Brown Elementary and that's been in this disrepair for a long time. We are implementing the exploratory phase with a partner with the Olympia School District, potentially, and that's what this public hearing is to engage on. Last time we talked about this, Commissioner Minzer brought up a good point. The public hearing is needed for the condemnation process to proceed, but not for the ILA. But in order for us to provide extra transparency, we thought it would be a good idea to have this all at the same time so that if folks did have comment, they could provide that comment at one time in one place.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, we've had years worth of discussions on this. Thank you, Josh, to you and your crew.
Commissioner Menser?
No questions, thank you.
I don't have any questions. Thank you. With that, then after at 3:30 or shortly thereafter, we will have a Transportation Benefit District meeting. So the Transportation Benefit District meeting agenda for our meeting on April 19th. We will call the meeting to order at 3:30 or shortly thereafter. We will have the approval of the April 19th, 2022 agenda and approval of the meeting minutes from March 15th, 2022. After, we'll have an opportunity for the public to address the board, and we will have two department items. The first one, 3A, will be a presentation, the state of the transportation system.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Scott Lindblom, County Engineer. The first of the two items for the TBD meeting next week is, as you mentioned, the state of the transportation system. This is an informational update just to give you an awareness of really an overview of our road and bridge system and our transportation system as a whole. There will be no action requested of you. It's informational only.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
Nope, thanks.
Okay. Item B will be a presentation regarding the federal infrastructure bill funding.
Yes, the second and last item for the TBD meeting will, as the title says, provide an overview of the federal funding infrastructure, as well as I'll provide a brief legislative update on what happened recently with the state legislative session that ended about a month ago. And again, no action will be requested.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner?
State or federal? I guess
There's the state, I'm sorry.
It is the state?
The state legislative update, but I'll give you an update on the federal funding package that came through as part of the Infrastructure Jobs Act, IIJ.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No, I don't have any questions on that item.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we will be adjourning the meeting. So that will conclude the Transportation Benefit District meeting. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda are Proclamation and Awards.
Turn the microphone on, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon. Good morning. Sorry, this is Katie, Executive Assistant to County Manager Ramon Chavez, stepping in for Clerk of the Board Amy Davis. Proclamations: the draft proclamation for Earth Day and the draft recognition for Bicycle Community Challenge, formerly Bicycle Commuter Month, will be routed this week. And there are no new applications for boards and commissions today.
Katie tackled both items at once, the advisory boards and commissions. So any questions on either of those matters?
No, ma'am.
And I will be bringing forth a recommendation from the Planning Commission. I want to thank everyone who applied. We had so many great applicants. It was really great just to see that so many people were interested in this position. Right now, I have decided to bring forth Maria Siguenza, and she submitted her application. And so I'm happy to send that application and the rest to the other commissioners. And we can have more discussion about that next week.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe your assistant can send that application to me, and I will make sure we will include that in next week's package.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
I had just a comment maybe on the Agriculture Advisory Committee vacancies that we've been kind of waiting on. I know there's an issue with the handbook, but I just want to throw out the concept, and we can talk about it later, but in terms of trying to deal with the larger issues on this committee, I don't think the handbook is necessarily the answer to all of the issues that we've confronted. I want to make sure that the committee is diversified, and I don't just mean racial equity or racially diverse, but although that's important, but also just diverse amongst the sectors of the agricultural landscape. So one thought I had, just something for future discussion potentially, is just if we ask the committee to provide us with kind of an overview, a data overview of the different sectors of the agricultural landscape within Thurston County, working with the ex officio members of the committee, Sarah Moorhead and Stephen Bramwell. I had a brief chat with Stephen Bramwell, and he said he would absolutely have that data that he could share and help shape the committee's report back to the board. That would then help us, I think, inform our decision-making when we decide who to place on the committee, to make sure that we're kind of covering the sectors, the various different sectors of the Thurston County agricultural landscape appropriately to their relative importance in our local economy. So that's just a thought as to how to help the board do a better job of creating a diverse set of folks on that committee that can hopefully give us the kind of, wide-ranging perspectives and balanced recommendations that we need. So anyway, just throwing it out there.
That's a good recommendation, and I've been looking at the Pierce County Ag Advisory Committee, or they're called something different, but I've been looking at their structure and seeing how they're framed, because I've been very impressed with how they've been working, and just been very impressed with them overall. So I'm open to.
I'm just curious, Madam Chair, is there something particular about their structure that's different that caught your attention?
Well, it's not their structure, but it's just I've been seeing how they've worked through this whole the meat processing plant and how active they've been in assisting, and so that's kind of what I've been impressed with. I know I spoke with Stephen Bramwell about it, and he was very impressed as well. So we were kind of trying to see, what they did differently than us, or how they've laid it out, where, they're able to be more efficient. So I know that me and Mr. Bramwell had also spoken about that. So like I said, I'm open to your suggestion to Commissioner Menser.
Maybe at the commissioners check-in this on Thursday, maybe you continue this conversation.
Sure, sounds good.
Okay. With that, PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. County Manager, Assistant County Manager, Brian Dominique, your Public Information Officer. I don't have a whole lot of updates today, but I have received a media inquiry about a statement regarding what's out going on in Ukraine, excuse me, the Ukrainian war over there. They wanted to know if the county was preparing to, provide a statement or do a proclamation or anything like that. So I wanted to let you know there was some community interest in that, specifically in the media, and bring that up as a conversation for the board. And I'm also working on some communication items related to race equity with Nicole Miller.
Commissioners, Commissioner Edwards? Question, comments?
Well, I think it's the pits, what's going on over in Europe. I mean, is that what you want me to say?
Well, I'm just curious about this request myself, if I may, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Request from who?
From the Olympian.
The Olympian wants us to make a statement?
If we're interested in making a statement, when Brian brought this to my attention yesterday, I was struggling, at least from my point of view, as to what that statement would be. Obviously, I think it's pretty evident all of us are totally distraught and disgusted as to what is going on there, but what will be the official legislative statement perhaps the Olympian is looking for? So I was struggling with that, and that's what I suggested for Brian to bring this matter before you to see if you have any perspective, what a potential statement could be or position, because I'm not there yet, but.
I can make a lot of statements about a lot of stuff.
Right.
But I don't know that it has any relevance.
Because a formal legislative statement on something that is absolutely, horrible.
Hasn't the governor said something? Or? No, I mean, let's not get ahead of the governor. I mean, I'll just say that, I'd throw that out, yeah, I don't like what's going on, but.
Well, right now it's a public statement.
Yeah, I don't like what's going on, but I don't think I know enough about that I ought to be telling the president how to do business or the governor or whatever. I don't like what I see on the news, but how do you know what you see on the news? Sometimes it's one-sided, sometimes, I'm not saying it is, because I don't think it's in our purview to start telling our State Department how to do business. Myself, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
There you go, Brian.
Sounds good. That's really all I had for this morning. So pending any other questions about anything else going on, that's all I have.
Let the Olympian know there's plenty of weighty county issues for them to dig into and cover in greater depth.
Will do.
I'm happy to make statements about those if they want to contact me.
Exactly.
Okay. Next, legislative updates.
No updates, Madam Chair. I'm going to take this item from your agenda
Okay.
until next year.
Okay, there's nothing under briefing, public hearing, and decisions pending.
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to commissioner items. We have public testimony, other commissioner items, and then two executive sessions and one closed session.
So I just have one brief item on the public testimony. We're receiving some emails related to the Community Action Council. We have drafted a response. So to some of those emails, we have worked with your assistants. So I will be responding to those emails on your behalf. That's all I have.
Okay. Questions on that?
No
comments. Okay. Other commissioner items?
I think we got quite a bit to do here, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's
Okay. So with that, we'll go on to, can I announce all of the two executive sessions and the closed session?
Yes, please go ahead, because unlikely we'll come back into, close. And you may want to also state that after the executive sessions are concluded, you will be adjourning. If there is
Okay.
any actions related to the executive sessions, we'll take the appropriate notes, for sure.
Okay, and then how long?
I will expect that probably each one of those will take at least 15 minutes.
So by 12:15,
Yes, ma'am.
12:20 to be safe?
Yeah.
I have a question, Madam Chair, on that.
Yes.
If we say until 12:30, then do we have to stay until 12:30?
No.
I mean, I'm just wondering if we say till 12:30, we get down to 10 after.
I usually take notes when you close and convene each one of those, and those will be part of that.
Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to.
I
have to
always
do it
track the
again.
time when an executive session starts, when an executive session ends, and I will keep track of all three today in terms of the timing. And that will be part of the notes of agenda setting.
Okay, so we are about to go into executive session. We have 2 executive sessions and 1 closed section. We are set to be in those 3, I will say until 12:30, just to be safe. The first executive session is for RCW 4230-110 subsection 1I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity.
Art, you need to be. Sorry, I'm just clearing the room.
Oh, okay. It is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in an adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency, the county seat, commissioner's action may follow. The second executive session for RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1C to consider the minimum price at which real estate will be offered for sale or lease when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause the likelihood of decreased price. Unsolicited offer to purchase county property, commissioner's action may follow. The third is a closed session, and it is for RCW 4230-140 subsection 4A, collective bargaining sessions, or B, that portion of a meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining, road deputies and correction union contracts, commissioner's action may follow. So we will be there until 12:30 p.m. and we will be adjourning shortly after those. We'll be adjourning right after those commissioners' executive sessions.
Let me announce that outside the room 280, Madam Chair.